be increased.
Already, the Civil and Local Government Staff Union is serving notice. Government must be prepared to pay even more when the next sits to negotiate.
Government upon government, whichever color it is, I've always complained, no money. They have jobs. But we have resolved that this must change. Next round of negotiations, government should have enough money to even give us double living wage.
This is Top Story with Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. It has been 48 hours of intense negotiations with organized labor demanding 75.1% increase in their base pay. In the end, they only got a 23% increase, with the minimum wage also going up by 22%, just in time for the finance minister to finalize and present the 2024 budget in Parliament tomorrow. The Secretary General of the TUC, Dr. Yaoba, in the last few minutes has been addressing a news conference.
The public sector joint negotiation committee between all unions within the public space under the single spine and government also entered into negotiations to determine the national base pay. I'm happy to report to you that in some few minutes past, after a very difficult meeting, taking the current state of the economy into consideration and also taking into consideration the agreement that as a nation we have with the IMF, and in making sure that we stay on course in achieving all the targets that we've set to achieve for ourselves, and also to get all the benchmarks right. We have concluded that the national base pay be increased by 23%.
Let's get a full breakdown for you. Papania Shale just returned from that press conference. Is in the studio with me. Let's start with the base pay.
Yes, great. Evan, so for the base pay, this year's agreement is very different compared to last year when government agreed to pay 30% increment in the base pay. That was it. It was a flat rate from January to December. Now, this year's own, government is accepting at least a 23% increment in the base pay from 1st of January all the way to the 30th of June. And then from the 1st of July to the end of the year 2024, government will add an additional 2%, will bring that 23 number to 25%. So it's half for 23, January to June. July to December, we have an additional 2% to the 23, bringing the number to 25.
And in terms of real money, people want to see this percentage, how does it reflect in cash? So currently it's at 14 cedis, 74 pesos. It's going to move to 18 cedis, 13 pesos. That is up until June, right? Up until June, from January 1 to June 30th, you'll be now earning the base pay of 18 cedis, 13 pesos. And then from July to the end of the year, it then increases to 18 cedis, 43 pesos. So that's in real terms what it is. Yes. Let's talk about the minimum wage, which is also up tonight.
Yeah, so Evans, so they also got an increment in the base, the minimum wage as well. But this agreement was reached on Monday. So, but usually in previous years, they would have announced the minimum wage by now. But last year, I can tell you on authority that the negotiating powers from the labor point were chastised So this year they kept quiet so that the base pay comes to add up to the minimum wage conversations, and it looks as though they've gotten a very good offer at the end of the day.
And it's specifically that is gone up now by 22%. Specifically, minimum wage now is a 14 cedis 88 pesos. It's now going to go to 18 cedis 15 pesos, which is what you're going to get. Already today, some of the leaders of the labor unions were talking tough already, anticipating the next negotiation.
Yes, Evan. So you have the likes of Bampoado that is angry that women didn't get exactly what they want. Where did they start from? They started at 70% plus, but they ended up at 23 plus or minus 2, plus 2 after the half of the year. So you'd hear from Bampoado, who is Dr. Bampoado, who is the executive secretary of CLOCSAG.
Government upon government, whichever color it is, I've always complained, no money, no money. They've given us all sorts of reasons. They have jobs. But we have resolved that this must change. Next round of negotiations, government should have enough money to even give us double living wage. And to do that, I think we have to look at the wastage in our system. We as labor, we are not going to wait for another year before we start talking about these things. I think we start talking about these things now. And we have resolved that any which way, freedom must come.
Let's bring in the Deputy Secretary General at the Trades Unions Congress, Joshua Ansah, joins us on the line right now. Thank you, sir, for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you.
And many of your members are anxious to know what really went into the numbers we've just been talking about, considering that you started off at 70%.
Thank you. Good evening to you. We are ready to look what happened. If I start to say, today, just a few minutes ago, the negotiations came to end, was concluded.
Forgive me, Joshua Ansah. We have a bad connection to you. We'll get you on a better line so we can hear you. Of course, if you're joining us tonight, the organized labor led by the TUC have secured a deal now with government that would see the base pay go up by 23% from January to June, and then from July to the end of the year, it goes up a further 2%. That is the base pay. And then with minimum wage will also go up again beginning from January 1 by 22%. We're getting a breakdown of how the organized labor got to agree to that particular deal, considering that they have started off asking the government to give them a 70% increase in the base pay. Government started off at 10% increase, and as of the close of yesterday, they had come to 15%, and now agreeing to a 23% increase in the base pay. We know that the finance minister is going to Parliament tomorrow, and this was essential. It was critical that they got a deal today before tomorrow, so the budget will be finalized, and those numbers will then be factored into the 2024 budget. That is why this was critical. But the concern for some, within Labour is that this possibly could be a government tactic to arm twist, force the organized labor to agree to a number. Well, that number has now been agreed. Is it enough? I want to hear from you tonight. 055-11-11997. My colleague Papani Ashali is with me in the studio. Papani, you were there at the meeting grounds. Who else was there? Who else was represented apart from the TUC?
So, Evan, you have every person from the public sector. You have even security people. I saw people from the fire service. I saw people from the prison service as well. When it comes to the educational front, everybody was there. Tewu, you have Professor Jampo himself there again representing UTAG. You have the likes of Ghana National Association of Teachers as well that were there. And then if you come outside of the educational institutions, you have the likes of CLOCSAG representing some section of civil servants. And then again, you have representatives from the Public Sector Workers Union themselves. Again, you also have the GAU, that will be the Agricultural Sector Workers Union. So you have everybody from every sector represented in this meeting, a very crucial meeting for them, going into the 2024 working year. You hear sentiment from them that, well, we yesterday heard government say, well, they cannot break the back of government, but their stance is also that, well, we won't break you, but you can also kill us.
Yeah, well, thankfully, Joshua Ansah is back on the line. Thank you, Mr. Ansah. Hopefully, we can hear you on a better connection. Great. You were explaining how you ended up at 23% increase in the base pay, considering that you were demanding more than 70%.
Yes, I think I was saying that our meeting ended just a few minutes ago, and the base pay has not been increased by 23% from 1st January to 30th of June, and 25% from July to December 2024. And Evans, you can agree with me that it is not something that Labour will be happy and satisfied with it, but the conditions under which we are negotiating. This brings my mind back when government made its intention to go to this IMF. I think Labour cautioned and warned government not to go to IMF, because whenever IMF is in town, it comes with a lot of conditionalities which does not favor workers of this very country. And today we have all witnessed how difficult we have been the whole day before getting to a conclusion on the increment in the base pay negotiation. This is a signal that when we talk to our government must listen. Because we are fed up with this no money syndrome. And because we are under IMF, the conditionalities will not allow us to do A, B, C, D. I think we need to find a way to end this kind of stories and look for better conditions of service and minimum wage and base pay for our workers in this very country. It is something that we need to take serious. And we don't have to wait until minimum wage negotiations on base pay before we talk about issues in Ghana here. I think a lot of wastage is happening in this very country. A lot of sacrifices that is being made by workers. We don't see that from the government part. So these are the issues I think going forward we need to bring them on board for discussion and ensure that workers of this country also benefit from the labor that is here in this very country.
So you agree to the 23% instead of 70% that you went in with because of the economic challenges we are in?
Yeah, because of IMF and so on and so forth. Because we are all in this country, and you wouldn't want to be the reason why the country will collapse. Even though workers are suffering, but we think that we must all be concerned about the survival and the sustainability of this very country. So, Evans, I think we have all come to conclusion on this for some major reasons that IMF conditionalities does not allow us even to go beyond what we have even tried to reach. Okay, so it is not all that sweet, but what can we do? Evans.
Okay, so you were being empathetic, and of course you wanted, as you've just explained, that you don't want to be the reason why the economy should collapse. But I've heard organized labor say that it's not your responsibility to worry about that, and that it's government responsibility to manage the economy properly so that you get your due. Do you honestly, sincerely believe that 23% reflects your output, what you put in?
Because, like I said, it's not a good story. It's not a story that you should be jubilating about it, but the situation we find ourselves has put us in this situation, and I will plead with all workers of this very country that is where we are find ourselves now. So we need to manage it, and going forward, we need to put in measures that could help us actually achieve something better in our future negotiations. I think it is time for us to be demanding a minimum wage instead of base pay and so on and so forth, so that people can at least make ends meet in a day. As it is now, it is very, very, very difficult. It's very, very, very difficult for us to actually do anything beyond what we have gotten this evening. Evans.
How do you justify that to your members? So how will you be explaining that for them to agree to what you're saying, the reasons for disagreement?
I know it's going to be very, very, very difficult. I know it's going to be very, very, very difficult because our expectation was nowhere near the 23% that we have agreed on. Our expectations were higher than that. And as it has come like this, we expect all the leaders who were part of the negotiations to actually explain the issues to their members, because it is for the reason that every union was represented there, so that we could all come to one understanding and actually disseminate that same information to our members on the ground. Every union was represented in this public space. So these negotiations was not done by only 2, 3, 4 people. It was done by all organized labor leaders. That is the understanding I want to make. So it is our duty. Once you have gone there to accept something like that, so it doesn't rest with one person or two persons. All the leadership who were there should have the responsibility of explaining why we arrived at such agreement with the government on the base pay.
And then also explain why you have a graduated increase in the base pay. You have a 23% between January and June, and then a 25%, an additional 2% from July to December. Why is that?
Yes, let me explain. Let me share this information with you. In the IMF document, it looks as if there has been a figure that has been put there, and anything beyond the 23% will not let the government to have the second tranche of the IMF bailout money that they are expecting. So in issues like this, if it is that will not let them have their money, that will not have them the second tranche of the bailout money. And if it is found in the communique that government has awarded 25% or more to the worker is going to have a problem, then the start rate of the 23%, which will enable government get its a second tranche, should be allowed to get a chance. Then from the July, in the mid-year review or something like that, so that 2% can be considered, and the 25% will be paid to workers. Evans.
Please stay with me. Thankfully, your friend and colleague, Angel Kabonu, who is the president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, joins us now. Mr. Kabonu, thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Evans.
Yes, sir.
But once you've spoken to Joshua and myself were on the same bench in the negotiations.
Yeah, I know that, but you represent NAGRAD, a very particular group of workers. How are you going to explain this? He just told us that is the responsibility of every leader now to go back to your members and explain to them and get them to understand why you agreed to the 23% increase. How do you propose to do that?
Yeah, okay, well, Ivan, let me state clearly that this salary increase was painstakingly arrived at. It is not a solution to the economic quagmire that our people are confronted with. The general economic malaise is such that one wonders even if one gets a percentage salary increase, it affects our economic situation, because every day inflation is moving leaps and bounds ahead of the monies that we have. But let me also say that it's better than what it used to be, because today if you are earning 100 Ghana cedis, from January you get a 23% on that, and then from July it moves to 25%. The solution to the problem is identifying the cause of Ghana's economic situation and finding a lasting and sustainable solution to it. That is eluded Ghanaian politicians. And some of us have the feeling that the Ghanaian politician is just doing try and error with our economy.
However, I listened to both of you and I get a sense this must have been a pretty cordial environment. You agree to what government proposed. Government says, well, the IMF won't allow us to go beyond a certain 25%, so take the 23%. And then once we get the tranche, this must have been a meeting of, well, I understand your challenges. You give me what you can, and then let's see what we can do later.
Well, I want to assure you that it was not a walk in the park. It was not a walk in the park at all. And it is also against good labor practice for me to state after negotiations where government started from and the tortuous journey we went through to arrive at it. It is against good labor practice to do that. But I want to assure you that it was not a walk in the park at all. Government did not start from this position. Labour did also not start from this position. But as you negotiate and you move on, you will need to move to a compromise position where you can take something home and government also have a breather within the reality that confronts it.
You think your members will accept that explanation? You know your members. Now that you're going back to sell this to them, you think they'll accept it?
Well, the purse is not in the possession of leadership. The purse is in possession of the government. Number two, we, the people of this country, the entirety of the people of this country, put people in the helm of our affairs. So it behoves on all Ghanaians to put competent people in the helm of affairs. you know, and in this I'm not talking about any political party, but the consequence of our selection of people to be at the helm of affairs of this country tells on us as a people. You know, so for me, the bigger picture is not at this level of negotiations. The bigger picture is the clarity of the Ghanaian in understanding his or her realities and taking decisions in relation to that. Today, as we speak, every day prices of commodities go up. Now they tell you that, well, if you do not come to an agreement, then we all have to go for labor, for arbitration. When you go for arbitration, I can assure you can be at arbitration for over 6 months. And who loses? It is the Ghanaian worker who loses.
Okay. Well, as it is now, you are expecting a graduated, staggered increase in the amounts going forward into next year, and that is dependent. And from what I just had explained there on the first tranche coming in, nobody knows what's going to happen next year. Next year is an election year. You have the assurances and the guarantees that additional 2% increase from July is automatic.
Yes, it's an agreed position, and they don't have a choice than to implement it.
Thank you very much. That's Angel Kabonuda. He's the president of NAGRAT. Earlier you had the Deputy Secretary General of the TUC also speaking to us about the agreement that's just been reached with government and organized labor. If you are in the public service, expect your salaries to go up from January 1. And as you've just been hearing there, your base pay is going up by 23%. Minimum wage is also going to go up by 22%. But even for the base pay, you can expect a further 2% to go up. I want to bring in Bright Rukubobe, who is the Deputy Minister, Employment and Labor Relations. Mr. Bright Rukubobe, thanks for your time here on Top Story.
You're welcome, Ivan.
Great to have you join us. I know yesterday when we were talking, you said government has started off at 10%. You then went to 15%. Now you've ended up at 23%. How did you get there?
Well, good evening to your cherished listeners. Ivan, yesterday when we had the conversation, I think I was quite optimistic about the fact that we are putting Ghana first, both labor and government. And this is what prevails today. So we are grateful to our partners in this, even though it's not what they wanted. But upon explanation at a point, the finance minister even had to come in to, put the figures on the table for them to see. So the kind of work we did in the spirit of transparency and trust for one another is what has gotten us this far. So we concluded, as you have said, with 23% pay rise for single spine earners from January 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2024. And then during the media review, we factor all that into consideration and then move to 25% from July 1st to end of year 31st December 2024.
23% increase. You can afford it?
Well, it's tough because uh, all the permutations that, according to the finance report that were done, 19% would have been very optimum for government. And every percentage point brings an overrun. So this 33% even gives an overrun, figures which I am not even close to mention. I don't know how much overrun. But we were told by the finance ministry that any 1 percentage point beyond 19% was going to translate into some. So the 23%, I am told, even brings a budget overrun like 3.7 billion. And this is huge, you know. So explaining all this to Labour, they had to get as to how finance will be able to finance this is one thing all of us are looking at. And maybe tomorrow's budget, the finance minister may tell us how he's going to finance this compensation line item.
And then you also have to now not only agree with the workers, you have to convince the IMF that this will not throw our program, of course.
Well, on the back of all this, that played a major role. You know, as a nation, we are all in the front together. So it came as part of explanation, and all of this went into the conclusions that we have had today.
So this is done and dusted. So you have peace of mind at least for one more year.
You know, when this is done, there is also what we call the conditions of service, and base pay rise comes also with pensions. Anytime you pay salary, it goes subsequently affects pension. So the 23%, even though agreed, in absolute terms may go more than that, because then we'd have to factor all those things and then pay. So the next stage is now conditions of service, which will also come into play. So the ministry is not resting at all. And you know, next year is election year. And people will use that and come to you, or you didn't want to see any strike actions and all that. So it's really tough. We are looking. Excuse me.
Apologies there.
Into the year, even though optimistic, we still foresee pockets of challenges which we'll have to deal with.
In fact, there's one already blinking red. The the Ghana Medical Association, warning you that by January 1, you should sort out their conditions of service and the working conditions that they laid before you. I know you wanted to get today issues out of the way before you start engaging that. Have you started that already?
Absolutely. In fact, my checks at Fair Wages indicate that they are really working on it. It's tough, but this budget must be read by Finance Ministry. They have a lot doing. And then right after the budget, probably next week, we will be sitting down on this matter and ensure that we don't get to the deadline which GMA has given government.
I'm grateful. That is Bright Rekrubobe. He is the Deputy Minister, Employment, Labour Relations. I want to hear from you tonight. So, especially if you are in a public service, 23% increase in the public sector base pay, and minimum wage also up by 22%, all beginning January 1. And you get a further 2% increase from July to December in the base pay. Is that enough? 055-1111-997. News Night starts now.
evening and welcome to Newsnight. In the next 60 minutes, minority in parliament vows to fiercely resist any attempt by government to introduce any new taxes in the 2024 budget, as they claim finance minister intends to raise an estimated 12 billion cedis in revenue next year.
But we have told him that we think that the people of Ghana have been taxed so much. The tax burden already is very, very high. And so it will be inappropriate to come with new taxes. Rather, the minister should look at cost cutting in terms of expenditure.
We'll get to hear from the majority who is pushing for the rationalization of the public sector payroll as he questions government expenditure on the overly large public sector.
Government payroll, people in civil service, public service. How much are we spending as a nation on them? Is it justifiable?
As we see,
you go to La Côte d'Ivoire, people in public service less than 200,000.
We'll get to hear from the majority leader on this. Meanwhile, in the last few minutes, base pay on the single spine salary structure has been increased by 23% across board from January to June 2024 and 25% for the rest of the year for 2024. Meanwhile, minimum wage also up by 22%.
I'm happy to report to you that in some few minutes past, after a very difficult meeting, taking the current state of the economy into consideration, that the national base pay be increased.
We have details also tonight. Health Minister Kweku Agyeman once again assures without concrete backing, work on the La General Hospital will commence soon without providing any specific date.
All parties to the contract have shown a very clear willingness and commitment to work, and we trust that this project will be carried out in earnest and completed within the 24-month duration as originally stated.
But how soon is soon? Because the minister said this in 2021.
So the ministry does not control that activity. It will be difficult for me to give a very specific point in time. All I can say is that it will be very soon.
Joy News Tracker coming up, plus more from Parliament, where NDC MPs have been tearing into the minister's statement as empty.
Clearly, government is even uncertain about when the project is even going to start. There was no real intention to construct this hospital. The statement fails to inspire hope. It fails to inspire confidence in the people of land.
And much later on Newsnight.
Why are most of our roads in such deplorable states? Why do we keep going to the IMF? The massive, uncontrolled corruption is suffocating the nation, and it's as if there are no checks. Some steal our money through the banks, as if we have no government, as if we do not have people to be in charge.
We'll get to hear from the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference as they bemoan massive, uncontrolled corruption while leadership is caught ball watching. We have business.
A significant decline in foodstuff prices pushed October inflation rate 35.2%, the third drop for the second half of this year.
And in sports, after only 3 months in charge, Hearts of Oak have lost faith in their head coach, Martinez Koopman. We'll tell you why.
We have that and more in this evening's edition of Newsnight, live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra, in Kumasi on Love 99.5 FM, affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We are on Facebook, we are on myjoyonline.com. Do join us with your thoughts and comments. It's via WhatsApp 055-1111-997. I am Emefa Apawu.
And my name is Mensah, and let's start with a big story that was breaking in the last hour or so. And if you're in the public sector, you'll be happy to hear this. If you're in the private sector, you tell me. But the base pay has gone up and the minimum wage is also going to go up.
So what we know now from the last few minutes we've been hearing on Top Story as well, at least government has agreed with Labour to give them a 23% across the board from January to June 2024. That's 23%. That's the base pay. And then 25% for the rest of the year 2024. We also know that minimum wage has also gone up by 22%. You've been interacting with Labour, also with government, amongst others on this. We know it's taking effect in January.
In January. So they explained just a short while ago that the reason why they have to stagger it, so you're going to get a 23% from January to June, is because there's an IMF condition that we cannot go beyond. If we go beyond, we'll be exceeding a certain threshold. That will mean we'll not qualify for that tranche at that time. So they had to sort of give the increase minus the 2%. So they just barely meets the IMF condition. And then post the receiving of the tranche, and then you get the 2%, which is really what went into the conversation around staggering it for 23% and then get the 2% after June, because by then government is hoping that they would have received the next release of the money, and then they will have to now increase it and then hope to fight the battle later in the year. And the Labour had explained that this is automatic, so government has no choice. So whether or not they get the tranche in June, it has to kick in July, and so government has to work for this to happen. So that's why they've staggered it. Very interesting analysis that went into the negotiations today, leading to this staggering.
But is Labour happy with the 22%, 25%, 23 and 25%? Because knowing that they went into this negotiation with 75.1%, went down to 60% yesterday, meeting ended inconclusively, and today we're back with 23 and 25%, which will be staggered. And that will be included in the budget tomorrow? It
should be. I mean, that was the whole idea with getting this done now before tomorrow. So overnight you can expect, now that the hard numbers have been agreed, it should go into the budget. In fact, the Deputy Labour and Employment Minister was clear that they were hoping to get a maximum increase in the base pay of 19%. He says all the computations that have been done said that would be the optimal amount for government. The government can take that. Anything beyond that would have caused a bit of a headache for government's budget. Now they have, of course, have to agree to 23%. So they are now going to struggle overnight to see how they work the numbers for it to work in the budget. But question about Labour. Is Labour happy? Labour says they have to take this for now because they understand that if they don't, the economy will crash because we have the IMF program. You just don't take my word for it. Listen to Dr. Bampoado, who leads the Civil and Local Government Staff Union.
Government upon government, whichever color it is, I've always complained, no money, no money. They're giving us all sorts of reasons. They have jobs. But we have resolved that this must change. Next round of negotiations, government should have enough money to even give us double living wage. And to do that, I think we have to look at the wastage in our system. We as Labour, we are not going to wait for another year before we start talking about these things. I think we start talking about these things now. And we have resolved that any which way, freedom must come.
Well, so that's Isaac Bampoado, one of those who appended their signatures to this particular agreement with government. So on the side of government, we had Ignatius Bafwewa, Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, and Engineer Benjamin Arthur, Chief Executive of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission on one side. We also had Dr. Anthony Yauba, Secretary General TUC, and Dr. Isaac Bampoado, whom you've been hearing, Chairman for the forum, all appending their signature to this particular agreement with government in the last hour or so. And talk of Labour, you've been interacting with the majority leader, Oseichi Mensah, in a yet-to-be-aired interview tonight on PM Express. And he's calling for a rationalization of the public sector.
I mean, the question was simple. Ahead of tomorrow's budget, what must government cut? And his first suggestion was that government must look at the public sector. The size of the public sector is a concern for him. How much the workers are taking and the toll that is having on the budget in the country is a headache for him as well because of the low revenues that come in, and says we need to now have a conversation about rationalizing that sector. He was asking a few questions. Do you reduce your salary? Do you in essence reduce the size of the public sector? In other words, some may have to go home. So he raised very serious questions that he believes that the finance minister should be considering in tomorrow's budget.
Well, we'll get to that because that's very interesting, knowing that we've just had base pay and minimum wage, amongst others, increase. We'll be hearing from the majority leader shortly. It takes us into the budget 2024, and already the minority is warning it will fiercely resist any attempt by government to introduce in the budget, claiming it will worsen taxes, they say they'll worsen the tax burden on Ghanaians. The budget is expected to cover all sectors of the economy, with particular emphasis on revenue revenue generation and expenditure cut in some areas to stimulate growth. But minority spokesperson on Mines and Energy, who is also a member of the Finance Committee, John Jinapo, says Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has told them he intends to raise 12 billion cedis in revenue as part of the budget.
We just met the Minister of Finance at the Finance Committee, and the Minister indicates that he intends raising additional 11 billion. That's about 1% of GDP. But we have told him that we think that the people of Ghana have been taxed so much. The tax burden already is very, very high. And so it will be inappropriate to come with new taxes. Rather, the minister should look at cost cutting in terms of expenditure. The issue is not just about revenue. I've heard a lot of people talk about revenue. Yes, it's good to raise revenue. Important that you look at the expenditure side as well. And so we're still waiting for the budget tomorrow. We are poised, but personally, as a member of parliament, I think that it's improper, it's unacceptable to further come up with new taxes and increase the tax burden on the ordinary Ghanaian.
Already there's advocacy by the minority to have Ken Ofori-Atta review the existing taxes. Former minority leader Haruna Idrisu says this will give the private sector some breathing space.
The biggest news Ken Ofori-Atta could have for Ghanaians tomorrow would have been to announce that he has reached an agreement with external creditors in order that he'll be able to save some $10.5 billion US out of the $29 billion US external debt. That will give him some fiscal space. But tomorrow, he's more likely to say that I'm near conclusion with external creditors, including China and Paris Club, on closure on this matter, which has become a requirement of the IMF for the release of the $600 million US bailout to add up to the initial $600 million US, which was released earlier. I think that we need the $600 million US badly before the end of November. Other than that, the epilepsy of the city will be at crashing level. So tomorrow, his biggest news would have been that I have achieved understanding and agreement with external creditors. Regrettably, he would not be able to say that because he still has some difficulties with the external creditors, particularly China and the Paris Club. He has to learn from the Zambian, Sri Lankan experience. More importantly, I expect him to resurrect the suspended Fiscal Responsibility Act. None of you are raising questions about it. In the Fiscal Responsibility Act, he will resurrect it. Like Jesus Christ, it has to come back again because there must be fiscal discipline, work towards fiscal consolidation. And you see, when you come for a review and amendment to a suspended act, itself will be a problem. So I need a review of taxation. Now, we must also, as a country, all of us, including those of us in the NDC, must begin looking for answers as to how to deal with the continuous depreciation of the city. We need to work to expand exports. We need to work to preserve foreign exchange in this country.
That's the former minority leader, Haruna Idrisu there. Let me bring in Joy Business Editor, George Uyafe. He has his ears and eyes on the ground when it comes to the Finance Ministry and whilst we prepare for the budget. So let's, as of today, George, from what we are picking up from Parliament, Finance Ministry within the corridors of government, amongst others, what are we picking up regarding the introduction of new taxes?
Let's quick background and backtrack. We are now getting the Ministry of Finance in the official document today, confirming to us that the budget to be influenced by the IMF program. There's something reported some few days ago with respect to growth and all those things. And one of the critical things in the fund program is about government should be working to improve revenue. Now, what form is this revenue going to take? There are also arguments that Ghana as a country, we are still not raising the required revenue to fund the expenditure. So if we look at the program and some pressures coming from the fund, and also how can government raise revenue to fund the essential services, looking at what they claim to be the rigidity in the budget, something has to be done. And that could be in the form of reviewing the rates, hiking the rates, or introduction of some new taxes. There could be a political cost to it. And Emefa, knowing what happens, and Evans will tell you that there's been a day where an hour before budget presentation, a document was withdrawn. But the economists will always say, holding all these factors constant, there is the likelihood that there could be some new taxes or reviewing existing rates to deal with this revenue gap and challenge that the government is faced with.
Reviewing existing rates upward. Is that the case? Okay. Well, George, we'll be waiting for you to come back with business. But we've been talking about the majority leader, Osechi Mensah, who is tonight pushing for the rationalization of the public sector payroll as he questions government's expenditure on the overly large public sector.
But the issue that we are raising about cutting government expenditure really is a matter that should concern all of us. Government payroll, people in civil service, public service. How much are we spending as a nation on them? Is it justifiable?
As we see,
you go to La Côte d'Ivoire, right? People in public service less than 200,000. Here in Ghana, we are over 700,000. Do we justify it? How do we justify it? But the very genesis of our national development. Remember, whereas Kofi Boigny at Independence was talking about letting private sector lead economic growth, ours was premised more or less on a socialist system, which is why we had a very big public service. Can we go on that way, or we need to rationalize? So it's really a discussion that, a serious conversation that we should have at the national level.
Do you want to see something in tomorrow's budget that addresses this problem?
You can't overnight do that.
But
let's say having the public service, you can't do that overnight, right? And if you have to do that with significant cuts, we must have a think through relocating them. What kind of compensation are you going to provide? It's going to be huge.
You believe the public sector is bloated?
I think that we have, I wouldn't want to use the word bloated, but is overly large, commensurate.
But they will argue that there's a justification for the number and what they
Nobody is saying that it's not justified. But that's why we're talking about rationalization. Let's rationalize as a country. It's not just for this government, because others have been able to have huge improvement in national development with fewer numbers. Can we do the same? Or let's ensure that everybody at this stage of our national development as women. In that case, what happens to the wage levels, right? Because people will have to be provided with living salaries, not just existential salaries. What do we do going forward? It's a huge conversation that we should have as a nation.
I want to catch the full interview on PM Express later tonight at 9 p.m.
Well, let's bring in economist and professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Godfred Bokping. We're grateful for your time here on Newsnight. So it's a fact, we have a big public sector. For the majority leader, it needs rationalization and then some significant cut. Is this a time that we can do this? Can we really achieve that?
I think that underlying all of this is the lack of governance reforms. And the vacuum that has been created, also supported by the Constitution, which has been exploited by politicians over the years since 1982. And I'm not sure the politicians are really committed to actually resolving that. No, that incentive is not there. The political will is not there. So what we have done since 1992 is to actually shift that burden increasingly to households and private sector through higher taxes. And it's the same narrative you also see reflecting in the 17th IMF supported program. If you look at the narrative, the understanding is that Ghana's program is largely revenue. And therefore the program is heavily based on revenue enhancement measures, expecting to contribute about 3% of GDP in the next 3 years, while the expenditure cut is only contributing about 2%. So this is what the program mirrors. Okay, so there isn't any reset in the IMF program to fundamentally do something about what the majority leader is saying. And government instead doesn't intend to do that. It's very clear in the program. And that is why if you see the program, if you look at the scale up of revenue to GDP ratio, we are looking at doing something around 17.3% in 2024, moving from, let's say, below 15%. And to even increase your revenue by 1 percentage point of GDP, it tells you the impact that is going to have on households and the private sector at a time when households are already distressed. And the same thing like private sector. Okay, so I'm not too sure we are ready. And I'm not too sure Ghana really is ready across the political divide that we want to be able to do the needful. It may be painful now in order to have a future we all can be proud of. We are not working towards creating that future.
Well, thankfully, he agrees that it can be done in the immediate. Maybe later on we can have that conversation. But something that has to be done immediately, at least for next year, is government being able to raise 12 billion cedis, at least from the meeting that the minority talks about with the finance ministry. That's the intention of the finance minister. 12 billion cedis next year. How can we do this without new taxes?
Emefa, that is precisely the point, right? When did government come to the realization that the problem is the expenditure? And if we have been talking about this in the past 2-3 years, right? Why didn't government reflect this understanding in the IMF supported program? Why was it that in the IMF program we are choosing to burden Ghanaians through higher taxes rather than cutting expenditure? How many times should we say this? Okay? So it's something like telling the public something and doing exactly the opposite. That is what Ghana has been doing. Look, Emefa, go back to the Ghana Beyond Aid document and check the target we set for ourselves through to 2028. We set targets, we know the right thing to do, and do exactly the opposite. Okay? We have been talking about cutting the number of ministers and ministries. For how long should we continue saying that? Okay? Look, the reality is that if you look at the way the program is designed, once your revenue shortfall in 2023, you are unable to meet the targets, you have to come out with measures in how you can meet those targets. Because remember that the IMF debt sustainability analysis that has been done, both in terms of growth projections, revenue, expenditure, for which we are expecting the gap to be filled by debt restructuring, both domestic and external debt restructuring. We have set targets, and we have indicated to the fund that we will work towards that. So that's going to be quite challenging for Ghanaians. Already, the private sector is overburdened with taxes.
And we'll be hearing from them talking about how it will cripple their businesses. But knowing that 2024 is an election year, Professor Bokpin, briefly, what will be your ideal budget?
There's going to be pressure on the government because if you look at it from organized labor, they are looking at something higher than what they have been getting previously. The understanding also is that in an election year, enforcement of tax measures, government is usually a bit slow because it may affect the election outcome. So over the years, you realize that the projections in terms of the fiscal target that we project for the election year, we tend to exceed that. Over all the competitive elections, you can look at 2000, 2008. The exception, you can trace it to 2004. You can look at 2008, 2012, 2015, even 2020. Okay, so there's going to be a challenge, and we know that next year is a test of how IMF programs will be able to withstand the shocks of our usual political business cycle. Remember, it's not a new IMF. It's the same old IMF. We know them. What happened in 2016? 2016, we were under an IMF-supported program. Almost all the program targets that we had in the 2016, we couldn't meet them. In fact, when we were done with the 2016 election, the first year progress that we made under the 60th IMF-supported program were completely reversed. So when we're done with the elections, we needed to ask for extension in order to bring the program back on track. And we fear something similar may happen as we go into the 2024 election. The real issue will begin to show up after the second half, and particularly the last 4 months of the competitive election year. Nobody manages anything in this country.
Professor Godfred Bokping, we are grateful. That's an economist, also professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School. We're watching that, and of course, we'll bring you live proceedings from Parliament tomorrow as the finance minister, presents to Parliament the 2024 budget. But speaking of taxes, we've been hearing from Guta.
Yes, Guta has been speaking about it, and of course, once it goes up, everybody else is going to feel the pinch, particularly them. And as they always will warn, if the taxes go up, they will pass it on to all of us. Listen to the president of Guta, Dr. Joseph Obin.
Coming from the last quarter of 2022, due to the effect of the depreciation of the cedi, most of our capitals got depleted, over 50%, and it is true. Most capitals got depleted. And so coming from that angle, and then we also having the IMF program with the new taxes that were imposed on us, alongside the old taxes, many taxes that we have made costs of doing business extremely very high. That's how we have to adopt efficient ways and take away all corruptible practices when it comes to our expenditure. This has been the bane, because if you do not ensure value for money contracts, for instance, well, maybe a contract that normally the private sector would have gone for $1 million. When government go for the same contract, the same value, the same everything, he's going for about 10 million. So it's a waste, complete waste. VAT should be taken out of the table from you.
On VAT, they should be
it should be taken. Because when I go and buy my goods from abroad, once it's being exported, they take the VAT from it before it's exported, so that the product becomes cheaper.
Well, that's a Guta there on their consent. Well, the Ghana Medical Association also have been outlining their expectations ahead of the budget.
We have spoken about logistical constraints in many facilities. And as I have said, many facilities continue to deal with difficulties in having basic equipment. Some regions may not necessarily have CT scans, and sometimes basic logistics for health workers to be able to deliver the care in the quality way that they need to do. We expect that there should be some allocations for things like that. We also expect that government should speed up the construction of the hospitals that are available.
The Agenda 111.
Agenda 111, and also some of them that are still yet to be utilized. And then in particular, the large general hospital one, which served a huge enclave of the country, is one of the ones that we have, as an association, followed up directly on. We have been informed that some efforts are being made to restart, but we expect that these should be sped up and finished. But then beyond just finishing these facilities, we expect that government puts in measures to employ the requisite staff numbers to be able to man these facilities. Again, National Health Insurance is one of them. They should look at the tariffs. Many facilities are looking at how difficult these tariffs are. As much as it has been increased, and we are grateful for that, they should look at the tariffs and then also pay them on time, even though we credit government for having done well in paying the health insurance to facilities much better than in the past. But we expect that they should do more, so that facilities can be able to get the necessary tools, logistics and equipment, and then also motivate their human resource to be able to serve the people better as we move forward.
That's the General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association outlining their expectations ahead of the 2024 budget. In the meantime, we're looking at inflation.
Yes, and inflation is going down. Very interesting when you begin to break it down into pieces. The latest inflation figures from the Ghana Statistical Service indicates an increase in the cost of banku, right, for the average man, with foodstuffs necessary for preparation contributing to top 20 items with the highest rate of price changes from October to 2023, right? So that is important. I mean, and Emefa Power likes banku and ademe so much, and so this comes to her with a great surprise and pain. Now, according to the government statistician, Professor Koblenin, among the top 20 items include corn dough, yes, fresh cassava, yes,
Belima.
and of course, tilapia, fresh tomatoes, and smoked herrings.
From a year-on-year perspective, among the 20 items that recorded the highest price changes, we particularly focus on 2 of the items that have significant weight, that is weight greater than 1, which means that any policy intervention directed at these items is likely to have a positive returns in terms of a slowdown in the rate of inflation. Specifically, these items were fresh tomatoes with a weight of 1.2% and smoked herrings with a weight of 2.9%. So these are 2 items that we identified in the 20 items with the highest changes for October 2023. Of the 20 items, we've also identified 5 new entrants that in September 2023, they were not part of the 20 items with the highest price changes, but for October 2023, they've made it in the ranking of the 20 items with the highest price changes for October 2023. This includes corn dough with also a significant weight of close to 1, fresh cassava, fresh juice, tilapia, and bicycles that have found its way in the 20 items with the highest price changes for October 2023.
And Kofi Ajay is in the studio with us. And Kofi, let's be clear. Headline inflation is down.
Yeah.
Okay. But in there, when you begin to unpack it, there's some items that are still contributing to not a more significant reduction.
So these are what we call the top 20 items, and they all record inflation rates above the headline figure of 35.2%. These inflation rates are all about 50%. Now, because Emefa mentioned banku, let me look at some of the key ingredients we use in preparing banku and their inflation rates. So you look at corn dough, for instance, it's around 57%. Cassava, which you said is like Belima, right, the fresh one, is around 56.8%. Now, if you are preparing banku, you definitely will need tomatoes to do your pepper and all of those things. Exactly. It's around 53.6% inflation. Tilapia, very important, Evans, is 53.2%. And then we have other, product, probably not for banku, but there's rice,
But there's
inflation.
smoked herring also.
Smoked herrings. In fact, some people love their banku with smoked herrings. That's the biggest contributor with a weight of 2.9. Inflation is 61.6%. So
This is amani you're talking about.
Amani, smoked amani. Yeah.
Oh,
amani.
interesting. What about dog meat and sanitary pads? Because we know that it featured previously. What's the situation there?
These are 2 items. If you look at from January to October, they've been featuring consistently. If you look at the top 20 items, and dog meat is here again. It's number 4 on the list with an inflation of 67.5%. It's almost twice the national average. We don't know what is actually causing this, but there's also sanitary pad with an inflation of 56.3%. There's rice, there's fish, fried fish, and then there's also cassava and other things like fruits and purchase
You
of
had
new
ladies'
bicycles.
underwear. New bicycles.
Yes.
Ladies' underwear previously.
Ladies'
Is it in
underwear is currently not in. It has been
Okay.
substituted by,
It's been unseated. Okay. You're not buying ladies' underwear again. Men, what's happening? Evans.
George Afe has an answer for that, and he's coming in. George, what's happening? Asking the question that Emefa was asking.
You can't even repeat the question.
Oh.
Are you saying you don't buy underwear for your wife?
Do you want us to share some WhatsApp messages?
Let's share WhatsApp messages.
Every of your thoughts there expressed through our WhatsApp line, 0551111997. Let me share them with you. Musa Bato says, I don't know what went into the reasons for the leadership of Labour to accept the 23%, but in my view, it's woefully inadequate considering the fact that inflation hits more than 50%, unprecedented economic hardship. Well, inflation is down now. So what, 35.2?
30, yes, 38.1. Yeah. Last September was
35.2.
35.2
now
yeah.
Today. So it's gone down. Workers are going in opulent expenditure by government. So he has concerns about the way government is handling the issues. More on this subject. Vuvuga Kwashi from Bogatanga. Yevuga Kwashi says the time has come. He says our labor union leaders have failed us. How can you move from 75% to 23%? How many of the union members have they consulted before accepting the 23% increase? the time has come for all union members to force their respective union leaders to resign, because all of them do not care about what the union members are currently enduring, he says. And please tell the statistician to save the credibility of the statistical service by churning out, he says, credible figures, because no Ghanaian will agree with what he's telling us. I believe he's feeling something else in his pocket. Well, but that's the scientific data, giving you a sense of the general picture. Also, this one has no name, but it says at the beginning, the middle of the year, I could buy kokunte, one of Emefa's favorites.
Yes, I love it.
At 3 Ghana cedis and eat to my satisfaction. Kokunte, aka Face the Wall, aka Okpulacha, for a bit over 2 months now. I'm having to buy between 5 to 7 cedis, depending on how stressful.
5 to 7?
5 to 7 cedis. It says, depending on how stressful my day has been, and if I need to survive the night, the inflation is killing us. That is the view there of our dear listener on the Kokunte issue. And the final one from Samin Kumasi says, there is no hope for us as Ghanaian youth in tomorrow's budget to ameliorate the hardship we have been walloping in. The budget remains an old wine in a new skin. The finance minister is just coming, he says, to strong words there. Tell us something that I guess he hears will not.
Interesting comments there, Evans. But I think
Very
that also we should get something clear that when the statistician talks about inflation coming down, doesn't mean that prices are dropping. You're looking at the rate of increase slowing down during a year-on-year comparison. So the rate at which prices were going up on the market, we've seen some marginal reduction, but that doesn't mean that prices are not going up on the market. And inflation, it's measuring the change in price than just saying that. So still, it means that they are slowed down compared to the previous year. Doesn't mean that prices are coming down automatically. So let's see how things. There are projections that we could be going down further to hit about 27% by end of the year. So let's see how things will pan out. Events. Well, coming up in business, government could introduce some new taxes and review existing rates in the 2024 budget. Significant decline in foodstuff prices pushed October inflation rate to new record levels, so 35.2%, the third drop for the last half of this year. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, Syntax Tanks, and Pepsodent Charcoal and Herbal.
Hey, Ma, the way you're always getting alerts these days, I won't be surprised to hear that you have gotten a Momo for Business account by my next visit.
Oh, I'm already on Momo for Business.
Since when?
Since. Now, it's easy to apply for a merchant SIM. All you need is a registered MTN number, your business certificate, your Ghana card, and you are good to go.
Sir,
you think you are the only one who knows what's up, eh? Look, I just dialed *5051#, selected register, and the region I was requesting the SIM from, and waited for my SMS with my reference number. You can even go online at momomerchantapplication.mtn.com.gh and complete the details for an even better experience.
Hey, Grandma Momo.
Sign up for Momo for Business the easy and simple way. Just visit momomerchantapplication.mtn.com.gh or dial *5051# and follow the prompts and be on your way to owning a Momo business account today for free. MTN.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kingdom Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom
Kingdom. And my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHF, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302 764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website www.kingdomgh.com.
No matter your water needs, Syntex has it all. Syntex tank was first to introduce double layer tank, and now you can have as many layers as you want. Syntex tank was first to introduce white inner layer tanks in Ghana, and now introduces the customer specs order, which will let you order any color and size you want. Syntex tanks gives you the biggest warranty of 7 years, which no other tank gives you. So whatever your water consumption, size of project or demand, choose Syntex tank. Syntex tank, stress-free. Syntex tank, reliable. Syntex tank, maximum guarantee. Call 0244 335 168, Kumasi 0505 555 666, or visit syntexgh.com. Syntex tank, a year strong, a year tough.
For over 10 years, Old Mutual has been touching lives in Ghana. Whether you're a trader or a student, an entrepreneur or an employer, or nearing your retirement, we have the right financial solutions tailored just for you. Contact Old Mutual on 030-7000-600 or visit our website on oldmutual.com.gh to learn more. And let's realize your financial freedom together. 10 years of greatness, here for a lifetime. Old Mutual, do great things every day.
Chalet, inside my car, dear, drama, wow! The movie lovers always get some story to share, and the Premier League lovers too, they like complain. Hey, VAR, it go over you.
Hey, this one, dear, it's like you're talking about me. The DSTV movie channels always they over me.
This festive season, it go over you even more on DSTV. Sports are sports, movies and swap movies, kids channels are kids channels. And if you happen to be out this festive period, the DSTV stream go meet you there. Dial *759# to reconnect or stay connected and unbox the entertainment this festive season. DSTV, it's your moment.
The luckiest, luck is everywhere, for everyone, yeah. The luckiest.
Keep buying your luckiest ticket with *712# as an individual, a group, an association, or even a community, and stand a chance of winning in the community draw or the ultimate draw on 23rd of December. Be the luckiest on *712# and win millions. Ticket sale starts on October 4th, 2023, and draw date is on 23rd December 2023. Play responsibly, not for persons under 18 years. This promotion is regulated by the NLA on the Caritas platform. Win millions on *712#.
The luckiest, you could be the luckiest.
I'm off way! Yeah! Media Sambisanda Moa. It's your Ratiano, Mumu, Panet, Vietnam, Podom, Pemana Yakono. Hey, Quabna. Hey, no Mumu wants me to be just my Marina there. Hey, and the crew, complete Miri Nambudo, Pimusan, so you super excellent Eba. I had a binding the Braille, who see it in a mobile, some man I want it. Sir, I need Nakujon, you super excellent Chaco. Nanny, dear, a mouse, when you're credit, fit of that. No, what you ask you, my mother feel you. Hey, Kojo, sir. Yeah. Pepsodent Eba and a Pepsodent Chaco. A failure. You're gonna natural.
FDIJ Jadian Katoyatu.
You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, government could introduce some new taxes and review existing rates in the 2024 budget. This is what Joy Business is picking up from persons with knowledge of the budget document. There is more in this report.
The expected action may have been influenced by concerns that government is still not raising enough revenue to deliver on public services. Joy Business understands that government finds itself in a difficult position Therefore, cutting expenditure may still not be enough to get the expected results. This is due to what government claims is the rigidity of the budget and the amount that it is supposed to spend next year on some essential items. We should not also forget about the IMF program, which hinges on revenue mobilization, a development that could be forcing government to go this way. We also understand that another development that might have complicated government's situation is the fact that all doors to raise revenue outside has been shut when it comes to Eurobond, bilateral and private capital borrowings. Therefore, it is pushing some pressure on government to explore some innovative ways to raise more revenue. We are also learning that looking at the revenue gap, even being heavy on tax efficiency and collections may not be enough. But looking at how things have happened, one cannot rule out what may arise. This is because things could change and the finance minister may not go ahead with this plan of introducing new taxes in the 2024 budget.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now, panel members of the University of Professional Studies pre-budget dialogue series have advised government to employ strategic measures to broaden the country's tax net. They've also appealed to government to rationalize its expenditure to stabilize the economy. Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedu-Abuaji, was part of the panel that questioned the government's inability to pay its loans despite the numerous taxes imposed on businesses.
It's not about increasing taxes or introducing new ones. It's about how effective you are in collecting those taxes. So I think that we have enough taxes as at now, and we don't expect any other tax from the 2024 budget. What we expect that they should look at the expenditure side. The issue is your ability to pay for the money that you have borrowed. And that also depends on what you invested or how you invested the money you have borrowed. We have consistently been going to the Eurobond market, borrowing at a commercial rate and using it to finance consumption. Where are you going to get the revenue to pay back the loan?
Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedu-Abuaji. The steep decline in the rate at which prices of foodstuffs were increasing has helped push inflation rate for the month of October 2023 to new record level. Data from the Ghana Statistical Service show that the rate for last month stood at 35.2%. There is more in this report.
Data from the Ghana Statistical Service showed the slowdown was influenced by reduction in the rate at which price of foodstuff increased in October 2022 compared to that of October 2023. The development doesn't mean that prices are dropping, but rather the rate of increases has slowed significantly compared to the same period in 2022. A careful look at the data again showed that there were changes for imported inflation and that of items produced locally. However, rate of decline for items produced locally recorded the biggest when you review the data put out by the Ghana Statistical Service. Alcoholic beverage, tobacco and narcotics posted the highest rate of price increase compared to the same period last year. This is the third time from August 2023 that the rate of increase in the general price level of goods and services has slowed to this new level. In July 2023, inflation rate was 43.1%, while ending October, it stood at 35.2%. There are some strong indications that inflation rate could be going down further in the coming month. Some have even argued that it is likely end year inflation will lower than what the 30% that has been projected by the government.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now, Bank of Ghana says it is still concerned about the involvement of bank staff in financial sector fraud. This has led to the implementation of many measures on ethics by the central bank in collaboration with stakeholders in order to maintain sanity in the sector. Speaking on behalf of the governor of the Bank of Ghana, the 60th anniversary of Banking on Ethics Conference in Accra, Director of Ethics and Internal Investigations at the Central Bank, Dr. Bernard Otabel, hinted that although there's a reduction in fraud cases, it still remains a top concern for the banking sector.
The balance SDIs and PSP's fraud reports that the Bank of Ghana issues yearly give strong signals that our focus on ethics and internal behavior should be strengthened. Although the 2022 bank's SDI and PSP's fraud report showed a decline in staff involvement in fraud cases to 188 in 2022 from 278 in 2021. The persistence of these unethical acts amongst employees of banks and SDIs remain a concern. As reported, most of the incidents involving bank staff had to do with cash theft, that is, cash suppression from customers.
Director of Ethics and Internal Investigations at the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Bernard Otebel. The Securities and Exchange Commission is working with the Ministry of Finance to set up an investor protection fund for investors. The objective of this investor protection fund is to compensate retail investors whose investments are impaired in an event that the asset management firms default in meeting the claims of these investors. Reverend Daniel Ogbamitete is the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and he spoke to Joy Business on the sidelines of the Ghana Stock Exchange annual Ring the Bell program to mark the local bear's 33 years of anniversary celebration today.
I believe that financial literacy is one of the key things when it comes to participating in the securities industry or the financial sector for that matter. At the SEC, we are embarking on a number of initiatives. So under our capital market master plan, one of the pillars has to do with deepening the investor base. And one of the tools to achieve that is to strengthen the financial literacy campaign. We are approaching it on a number of levels.
Director of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Reverend Daniel Ogbamitete. And that's all for Business on Newsnight. And some interesting development for... And that's all for Business on Newsnight.
Ajwa, the online page for the new business account was in shambles yesterday. We lost the page.
Tell me about it.
We started off very confident, and then the office broadband went down. When we set up the hotspot from the phone to reconnect, the data allocation also got finished.
You are joking.
I wish. The meeting room was hot. Kobe quickly tried calling them to give us some more time, but he had no airtime. Total chaos. They also gave us feedback that our website didn't have enough information. How can you run a business this way and hope to grow?
Oh dear.
Your business communication can be way better than this. Vodafone One Business is a complete communications package that gives you broadband with data transfer to mobile phones, mobile package with free calls among employees, landline with free calls and website design plus domain name registration. At Vodafone Business, we understand that strong connections within your business lead to success. Call 050-777-9000 or sign up by sending an email to sme@vodafone.com. Vodafone, further together.
Ready? Let's go. We are go bring some savannah.
Everyone is dancing, everyone is singing, because everyone is painting with Savannah. Savannah paints from Azar are affordable enough for everybody to fulfill their paint needs. Paint more, pay less. Savannah paint, we all go paint some.
We all go paint some savannah. We all go paint some.
We interrupt this program to bring you this important information.
It's Black Friday!
Welcome to the season of discounts at Samsung. This November, you can get up to 2,400 Ghana cedis discount on the Epic Galaxy S23 Ultra.
Discounts everywhere!
Get 60 to 800 Ghana cedis discount on handsets like the Samsung Galaxy A04 range, A14, A24, A34, and A54. We're also introducing our new Galaxy S23 FE at an unbeatable price.
It's Black Friday!
The Samsung Black Friday sale is from the 10th to the 26th of November in all authorized Samsung shops nationwide. What are you waiting for? Terms and conditions apply.
Tema Secondary School, in partnership with the Temasco All Students Association, invites you to the 62nd Speech and Prize Giving Day under the theme Enhancing Digital Technology Education in Ghana for Competitive Advantage. Date is Saturday, November 18, 2023. Time is 9 a.m. sharp. Venue is the forecourt of the school's administration block. The esteemed chairperson for this event is Anchorite Juliet Ampoma Okai, and guest speaker is Anchorite Dr. E. Kwame Obing. Anchorite Umaru Sanda, Amele Josu, and Thelma Taki will steer the affairs of the day. Don't miss this year's celebration. Be there with us on November 18 at Temasco for a memorable time. Temasco, nil nisi optima, nothing but the best.
Nil nisi optima, nothing but the
Thanks for staying with us here on Newsnight. Let's do sports. Accra Hearts of Oak.
Yeah, Accra Hearts of Oak. Well, not sure what's happening in the club, but they appointed this man. He's a dark tactician. 3 months ago, he was expected to lead Accra Hearts of Oak to the Premier League title after they last won it about 2-3 seasons ago. But it didn't work out for them. After 10 games, he's only managed 2 wins, 6 draws and 2 losses. And the club is currently languishing on the 11th position of the Premier League table. Well, they released a statement and announcing his dismissal. And my colleague Haruna Mubarak has more in this report.
2 wins, 2 losses, 6 draws, 6 goals scored, 5 goals conceded. That's the record of Dutch trainer Martin Koopman as the head coach of Hearts of Oak. The poor run of form has seen the club drop to the 11th position and just 2 points above the relegation zone in the Ghana Premier League. The club says Koopman's departure is part of a plan to restructure the technical team, and assistant coach Abdulrahim Bashiru will take over the role in the interim before a substantive coach is hired. Hearts face Accra Lions in a regional derby in their next match on Saturday.
We'll work there on that Heart of Oak situation. So we wait to see. The assistant coach is the one who has taken over now, but Bashir Hayford has been tipped to replace Koopman, and we'll wait to see if that happens. That's it for sports. Emefa.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bao. Now, Minister for Health, Kwekwaji Mamenu, says work on the demolished La General Hospital will commence soon. Although he failed to provide any specific timeline, the minister was hauled before the House after the MP for La Dadekotopon delivered a statement on the floor over the lack of action last week. According to Kwekwaji Mamenu, the project cost has been revised from 68 million euros to 50 million euros, and the finance minister has identified a financing source for the project.
Mr. Speaker, at the 37th session of Cabinet, the President directed the Ministers of Trade and Industry, Health and Finance to find alternative sources of funding to recommence the project. Through the efforts of the 3-man committee, the Minister for Finance has now identified funds locally to continue the project with the same civil works scope but a reduced price of 50 million euro. The contractors have resubmitted the advance mobilization guarantee to the Ministry of Health, which has been processed to the Ministry of Finance for payment. The project consultants and the ministry's technical team have met with the contractors to draw up a roadmap for the continuation of the project once the funds are received. The contractor indicates that once the funds hit the account, they will remobilize to site within 1 week. Mr. Speaker, so unfortunately I couldn't get some of these and shown on the video, but there are materials on site worth over $8 million that the contractor has put there to recommence work with. They were mobilizing, they actually mobilized, they were on site when suspension happened. Now we have all these materials there, there are very few skeleton staff on the site, and now that they are going to get back to site, we believe the project will move very quickly. At this point, Mr. Speaker, all parties to the contract have shown a very clear willingness and commitment to work, and we trust that this project will be carried out in earnest and completed within the 24-month duration as originally stated.
So that's the Health Minister today, 14th November 2023 in Parliament. Well, I'll hear reactions. I'll bring you reactions shortly, but let me refresh your memory with this Joy News tracker on pronouncements made in 2021, 2022 on the La General Hospital.
Times are wasting, times are wasting.
Government of Ghana pulled down the La General Hospital in the La Dadekotopon constituency in Accra because it had structural defects. The plan was to build an ultra-modern hospital for the people of La and also to serve other neighboring communities. At the sword-cutting ceremony, the traditional priest praised the government for this laudable project.
Hospital in Africa.
This redevelopment project is being financed by a credit facility from the Standard Chartered Bank of the United Kingdom with an export credit guarantee from Sinosure of the People's Republic of China to the tune of 68 million euros with an insurance cover of 3,860,000 euros.
With the land already available for construction, the government estimated that the project will be completed in 30 months. The project, which was supposed to begin in August 2020, should be completed in February 2023. In the 26th month of the supposed construction timeline, which is October 2022, we flew a drone over the facility, and it showed that the construction had not yet begun. In 2021, the Health Minister Kweku Achiman-Menu informed Parliament the government was working on insurance coverage for the project before work would commence.
The contractor is insisting that not until Sinosure issues the insurance cover, they cannot move to site. And therefore, Finance Ministry has been informed, they are engaging, and the indication is that that problem will soon be resolved. And since the ministry does not control that activity, it will be difficult for me to give a very specific point in time. All I can say is that it will be very soon.
So, very soon. How soon? Is soon, because we've had soon today, we've had soon in 2021, soon in 2022. That's the situation with the La General Hospital, and there's been reaction in Parliament. The minority says the minister's statement was empty, amongst others. We'll hear more subsequently on myjournalline.com.
Well, It's live here on Newsnight on Joy 99.7 FM. And guess who is joining us?
We are not live on Newsnight. Newsnight is done.
Oh, we're still live on Newsnight. Okay, we are live
on Joy.
On
Geek Squad.
Geek Squad.
Yes.
Geek Squad,
yes.
Good evening. Hi.
Today I'm calling you Peps too.
Infectious, huh? Yeah. It is. What are you discussing?
This evening we are looking at methods for parental device monitoring. Last week we started a topic on seeing the need for our wards to have devices, especially when it comes to the education. But then with having these devices, can we have some kind of monitoring in place so that they don't just do anything on it, but they use their devices for the right things that we expect them to use them for?
I have this one on my phone called Parent Link thing. Google, Android. I can monitor everything.
Yeah.
But these children always find a way,
into
know.
more details of that.
Sometimes they always find a way.
It's not Family Link.
They always find a way. So I'll be listening.
He hasn't found a way yet.
My 16-year-old has found a way. So I'm hoping